Hey everyone, welcome back to Pro AV today. I am your host, Ben Thomas. It seems every day these days you hear about an end user finding a new application for an AV piece of technology, whether that's remote surgeries with a low latency camera or heck, even courts conducting entire court hearings over IP tools. It's incredible to hear. And as we continue to grow as an AV community into some of these newer markets, it's critical that we engage and we help educate those communities. And I brought out someone today who knows quite a bit about really engaging all sorts of different industries and different verticals. That's Rich Ventura of Sony. Rich, thanks so much for hopping on the show today.
Well, thanks for having us, Ben, and we're really excited. And as we all have been doing a little recovery from being in Vegas together and talking about the industry, it's always great to catch up.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. And to help clarify, I think one of the questions that we get all the time is, we talk about emerging markets. This one specifically is going to focus more on the B2B side, right? So some of those more emerging enterprise markets that, have the decision makers, right? That have that channel kind of built in are some of the ones that we're going to focus on today. And, talking about some of those markets, you saw a bunch of them out at InfoComm. And just speaking of InfoComm, how was the show for you guys?
It was great. It was, as we were saying, it's the first InfoComm in almost 4 years in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's really the first. Last year was InfoComm, but it was not InfoComm, right? So this is kind of our first real InfoComm of everyone getting together. And, the numbers were definitely not where we were in 2019, but the activity, the action, the energy was well above 2019. So it was fantastic. And it was weird for me because I've been at Sony, it'll be 2 years next week. And it was my coming out party finally. It was a coming out party for the whole B2B organization over the 2 years that I've joined. And it was fantastic. I think we made a fairly large statement in the industry. I think the industry made a fairly large statement to the market. As I was talking with Dave Labuscus and I did an interview with him, I said, everyone's saying we're here. And Dave goes, no, we're back, right? And Dave goes, no, we're here. We're here right now.
Yep.
And I go, that's right. We were there. And it was a great show. I think a lot of great energy. And I think that was probably the best part of the whole thing was just the level of energy. It was nonstop all week.
Well, same vibe at NAB. I had a chance to see you guys out at both shows. And you talk about kind of the coming out party for the B2B side. It's incredible to see some of the work that you guys are doing really in the B2B spaces because it's easy from somebody who may not have been in the industry for that long to think, oh, Sony's just this headphone and kind of random other manufacturer. But really, you guys are making a massive play and a massive impact in the B2B spaces in AV. Is that true?
It is. So when I came on board, the three things I looked at more than anything else was the first was we needed to be easier to do business with. And the second was we really need to deliver against our customers' pain points and deliver the right solutions. And I think the third is we need to remember we're Sony. And so we have this unbelievable brand. And it's very rare that I talk to somebody who does not have a piece of Sony equipment in their home. And so when we looked at InfoComm and the things we've done the last 2 years, we really wanted to make that statement. And I think we did that in our booth. The one thing I was probably the most excited about was, without a doubt, we were the only manufacturer that did a true hybrid event where we had everybody there and then all of these panels that we did. And the focus on these panels were not about Sony. That was the interesting thing. Everybody saw these panels go, oh, this is going to be all about Sony. It was about the industry. We had conversations about diversity and equity and inclusion. We had an integrator panel, an end user panel, consultant panel. We had technology company panels. We had recap of the week panel. We had all these discussions and presentations from Crestron and AppSpace and Navori and Corbett and Spectrio and SkyKit, everybody and all these people. I don't think anybody else ever thought of doing something like this. And so we truly wanted to make Sony the destination of the show. And I think we did a fantastic job.
Rich, you're going to unlock my thought leadership side, and it's going to be hard to put back in the cage. So I think I can't let it fully come out yet, but exactly right. And that is something that I noticed specifically. I hosted the Avixa TV broadcast from the Avixa booth. And it was the same kind of thing, right? You're seeing AV move to this almost in a lot of cases digital first format, right? Because what's happening is there are just so many newcomers and so many people across the industry who are consuming that content that it's imperative, right? And we talk about these new markets and we talk about these new people coming into the industry. This is how they're learning. They may not care who Avixa is. They may not have the name recognition for Infocom or some of the smaller manufacturers, but dang it, they're going to watch Sony's stuff. So again, props to you guys, because it's incredible to see the work that you're doing in the industry. And we talk about some of these panels you guys are having and talk about educating these newer markets. We'll even step back and say, what are these new markets that you guys are seeing Sony really dive into from the B2B perspective?
Well, it's interesting. It's really easy for me to say this is where we're strong, because, this is where we're strong. It's the corporate, it's the education, it's government healthcare. But we're also seeing, where is the market evolving? And if we look at during the height of COVID, not that we're out of it, and it's going to be a long time until we get out of this. During the height of it, we saw retail shutting back, right? Retail was shutting down, restaurants were shutting down, airports were really shutting back because all those business travelers weren't traveling. Hotels were scaling back. But then what we've seen this last 6 months, 9 months, is this huge growth. And airports realize they need to communicate differently now, and they need to deliver information differently. Retailers know they need to do things differently. Hotels, you go down the list, but in healthcare, healthcare, if anyone got hammered the hardest, and when I say hammered the hardest, I mean they were the busiest, was healthcare. And they've really evolved how they've done stuff, whether it's telemedicine and communicating with patients and signage, so that you're not worrying about people coming in and touching things, and social distance, all this stuff. Those markets are all continuing to emerge and grow because they're learning about new ways to do their business. And it's not like it used to be. And technology has really had to take that new step to evolve with it. And whether it's software, whether it's the cloud, whether it's analytics, and it's larger displays, and how can I interact with that screen without touching it, because I'm concerned about doing a touch screen, although it's been proven it's still safe, but I want to do it on my phone, right? That's what we're seeing. So it's while the verticals are constantly evolving, it's the applications that are really emerging. And it's almost like every couple of months we're hearing about a brand new application that nobody thought of, because we have a new business challenge, a new pain point for our customers.
Well, what's really interesting, I'll stick on that healthcare example here for a second. I was having a conversation with an LED manufacturer last week talking about LED programming for circadian rhythm in hospitals. The application for that is straight up AV, right? You've got sound control, you've got light control, you've got visual control, heck, even shades and things like that. And you talk about some of these new markets that may have had some traditional applications, right? It's okay, we could sell displays into hospitals and TVs and things like that. Now we're talking about totally different conversations. And how are you guys seeing that from a Sony side? Really, how are you jumping ahead of some of those?
So probably one thing you may not know is we have an entire healthcare division. And it's just been an amazing group. And it's one of my peers who runs that organization. And they focus on the clinical side. And so we have our products that go in the clinical side. My group, we're outside of the clinical side. But what we've seen now is this focus on how do we bring stuff that's outside the clinical into clinical, and vice versa, right? So we always talk about in AV, this emergence and convergence of IT and AV. Well, we're seeing this convergence in healthcare of clinical and non-clinical applications. And our hospital accounts, our healthcare partners, they're just seeing a massive growth of opportunity. And part of it, honestly, is these last 2 years, hospitals had to focus on one thing and one thing only: patients. They didn't have the time and the ability to go, oh, we need to invest in signage. We need to invest with how we're communicating. We need to invest. There was like one application, I was talking to somebody at Infocom, and they said what they want to do is they want to have a room that all 4 walls and the ceiling are LED. And they want to do light therapy.
Wow.
And they want to do sound therapy in these spaces, because they're looking at a whole nother area that we have to deal with, which is the long haulers, of individuals who COVID impacted differently. And they're looking at ways to help them, whether it's with headaches and stress, and because it's a whole nother piece that this is all introduced, right? So I think healthcare is really starting to be creative and thinking differently.
Well, it's an interesting point you bring up, because when I think AV, and I think AV integrator, channel partners, things like that, my mind doesn't naturally go to, we'll stick on healthcare here. It doesn't go to, I'm going to call AVISPL because I need to build a hospital, right? A lot of these, whether it's hospitals, clinics, even, practitioners, things like that, they don't necessarily know a lot of these channels. So what's happening is their IT teams, or even their their smart tech guy who's walking around the office once a week, is having to make a lot of these decisions and do a lot of the research and try and find a lot of these solutions. What is, from a manufacturer's standpoint, how difficult is it to really not have a majorly well-established channel in a lot of these new markets?
Well, what's interesting is what COVID has taught us, and I hear this conversation every time I talk to executives at all of our partners. It's taught us that the integrators are diversifying their business. And it's no longer, I'm just a hang and bang for conference rooms. An integrator is focusing now on IoT. They're doing cloud services. They're doing all these things, right? So these ecosystems have actually gotten bigger and stronger. And I think what we've seen, especially in the last, I'd say, year, is they've become more vocal about their abilities. You're seeing that in case studies and white papers and articles. And they're really showing more of what they can do. But I think also what we've seen is this whole consolidation that's happened in the industry, I think has also helped with that. And smaller guys getting gobbled up by the larger guys, companies the same size merging together because maybe they are really strong in this practice. This guy's very strong in this practice. They bring it together and they've got an unbelievable practice together, right? And then we're seeing manufacturers, whether it's software or hardware companies, they're diversifying their portfolio too, right? So I think all of that is actually helping it make it easier to find the partners. And the other thing is what we've also seen are the consultants in the industry have taken on a different role. Instead of just saying, here's your design and here's 500 Sony displays and where I put them all, they're actually helping connect the dots too. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what was critical when we looked at even the panels, is how we brought everybody together, the whole industry, because that's what Infocom is about. It's the whole industry. It's not just the manufacturers. As much as we like to say it's just about us because we have all the booths, it's about the whole industry. And I think that's what we're seeing everybody finally doing.
Well, when you talk about industry trends, there's not one larger right now in AV than a renewed focus on the end user, whether that's education, training, whether that's even just hands-on product demos. How does Sony kind of bridge that gap between the end user and some of these new communities and even in established AV communities?
So I think the big focus that we brought on board after I joined was really a stronger focus at the vertical level, and understanding what are the pain points and the levers that each one of these end users have. Because what we lacked as an industry were all these events where we could have a meeting with a customer face to face, show them something, and say, oh yeah, that's great. Oh no, that's not great. It's not going to solve my pain point. We had to do this all virtually. We're doing this over Teams. We're having conversations with the CIOs and CEOs of these companies, and they're not wanting to be on camera and we're not on camera. You lost that personal connection, so you can find out everything, right? So I think the big focus that we did was really diving deep and understanding their pain points at the end user level and the verticals, and then understanding what our partners are doing to solve it, what we can do to solve it, and really build, like I said earlier, that easier to do business with, and really be able to deliver more to their value, to what they're looking for. And as I always say, my goal within Sony is I want our people to be the smartest in the room. And it's not because we're all propeller heads. It's because we understand the pain points and we're listening more to the customers and we're building a better dialogue with them. And that's helped us leap our competition. It's helped us leap into the market and put us at that level where Sony should always be, because we are an industry leader, and we can really deliver the right solutions to our existing markets. But you mentioned, those emerging markets. That's where we really are challenging our customers and our partners and say, where are you growing and where can Sony come? And that's really changed.
Well, there's not many people doing the great work that you guys are doing, especially in those verticalized markets that you mentioned. I'll give you the last word here. Going into, kind of the end of 22 here and moving into 23, what excites you most about some of those vertical markets?
I think public spaces are really growing. We're seeing it. When we talk about public spaces, we're talking about everything from arenas to parks and zoos and convention centers. And, that is, I think, is a really exciting area. We saw some of that in Las Vegas when we were out in Vegas a couple weeks ago. We're seeing those opportunities. I think people want to be together, but they want to be in a wider spread out area. And so I think there's a lot of growth opportunities there. So that's really exciting. I think looking at analytics and business intelligence and really helping understand how people use the technology, why they use the technology, I think is opening up new ways to use the technology. I think finally, and this is probably, those who know me really well know I'm always a big geek about data. I'm always a big geek about data, and my team's learned that from day one. I think the level of data that we're getting now is so much different than we got a year, 2, 3 years ago, that customers are willing to share more. So it's helping us evolve our solutions and how we can work with them. But I think it's allowing the industry to do the one thing that we've always been accused of not doing. It's allowed us to become agile. And when you talk about AV compared to IT, it was always IT moves fast, AV is slow because we have a set way we do everything. I think the AV industry is becoming even more agile than IT is.
I would agree very much with that statement. Rich Ventura, Vice President of B2B at Sony, thanks so much for hopping on today. We appreciate you hopping on and having a great discussion.
No, thanks as always.
And thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to watch next week.